And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking 5 drivers who probably, maybe, could be out of F1. This is inspired by a planetf1.com article. And that is entitled The Next 5 Drivers Most Likely to Leave After F1's Daniel Ricciardo Axe. So as you can see the article here, the next 5 drivers most likely to leave after the Daniel Ricciardo Axe, written by Oliver Harden. Let's get into it. Let's get on. Let's have a look at our opinions. See what you think. Comment below. Let us know whether you think they're right or indeed wrong. So we've had a bond. All had a fond bond. Yeah, I've just been watching a James Bond film. A fond, let's say, farewell to Daniel Ricciardo in Singapore. At least the fans did. Red Bull, RB. Yeah, let's not talk about that. But what other drivers could potentially follow him out of that exit door? Now, the article says itself, and I completely agree, for the purposes of keeping it interesting, let's assume that both Zhou Guanyu and Kevin Magnussen, those 2 drivers, are almost certain to be without a seat for 2025, at least at the time of recording this. So let's talk about our first driver, who we believe is, and well, along with the article as well, is most likely to leave Formula One. And it's a pretty obvious one, I'm afraid. This man here, yes. So far, Perez has survived. He's survived Daniel Ricciardo. Is he going to survive Liam Lawson? That's the big question. So he may have laughed off all the rumours that he's planning to retire in Mexico, which I still think is a possibility. He's come close, very close, to losing his seat on more than one occasion. Once at the end of 2023, and again in 2024. Now, planetf1.com, they're revealing over the summer that he had that the team supposedly, and a lot of other people were suggesting that the team had a change of heart. Now, whether that was because of this, tinfoil hats ready, money from Sergio Perez's sponsors, or even Formula One, as in Liberty Media itself, suggesting that Sergio Perez stays. I mean, the Mexican Grand Prix does big business in that part of the world. Sergio Perez potentially does big business. However, the uncertainty surrounding his future at the Belgium Grand Prix, if we go back all that way, is believed to have centred around what was a clause in this 2-year contract that got extended around Canada in June, if you remember. That amazed everyone, including myself. And this supposed clause that got put in with Sergio Perez's renewal contract, it gave Red Bull the freedom to replace him during the summer break if he had fallen more than 100 points behind Max Verstappen. And let's be fair, he very much did, didn't he? To the points deficit to Verstappen now, prior to the American Grand Prix, it's 187, a bit more than 100. And I know we're not quite, I know Belgium's now a long way away, but Perez's revised deal, widely thought to contain what was these stricter performance demands, does it really come as any surprise if a similar mechanism does not exist to allow Red Bull to drop him over the winter? Probably not. And that might be why VCARB, this is the other rumour, stopped short of confirming Liam Lawson for 2025. Remember, they only confirmed Liam Lawson for 2024, and not the rest of 2025, which is really, really weird. So the only plausible explanation is that a strong end to the season, and a lot of people have theorised this in Formula One, a strong end to the season for none other than Liam Lawson could well emerge as a serious alternative to Sergio Perez for next year. He may not choose to walk away, but the end of his F1 career may well, and kind of sadly, be closer than he thinks. So who's next potentially for the chopping block, as in the next 5 drivers most likely to leave Formula One? Well, they think it's this man here. Yes, Daniel Ricciardo's now former teammate, Yuki Tsunoda. So he has, to be fair, enjoyed absolutely solid 2024 in terms of the rest of his career. This is his best year so far. But, and there is a but, far from being a springboard to bigger and better things, we thought, well, Red Bull should hire him, surely. But it was fascinating to observe just how long, if at all, Red Bull are going to stick with Yuki Tsunoda is that contract? Well, I don't know. But this obligation to field him ceases to apply at the end of 2025. Why? Well, one word, Honda. They are moving to Aston Martin. And that's what makes things potentially interesting. And now, for some time, it seems Tsunoda would simply follow Honda to Aston Martin once this Red Bull deal was done. Yet, and here's potentially one issue. We've got Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, and that counts very much against Yuki Tsunoda. He doesn't really fit the profile, does he, for Lawrence Stroll, who likes world champions, refined world champions, a la Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel, for example. Not Lance Stroll, obviously. But does his face fit? And that's the feeling you get at Aston Martin. And also, that's the kind of feeling you get at Red Bull. So unless he takes control of his own destiny, and he's picked potentially by another midfield team, or could it be an Audi? Could it be an Alpine? Could it be a Haas? Pretty soon, Tsunoda's medium to long term being a driver is very much in question. So who's next? This one might be a bit more obvious. I mean, Sergio Perez, obvious. Yuki Tsunoda, maybe a bit out there. Let's say this guy probably not so much, but there's a but. And it's this man here, Lewis Hamilton's former teammate, a multiple Grand Prix winner. So Valtteri Bottas, is he now a better driver than he was, than he was racing at Mercedes? Does he just not have the car to show? Now, for what it's worth, he is convinced that he is when you listen to some interviews. Now, we could say, yes, he would say that. Absolutely, he would. But when you look at it, he has now beaten Zhou in qualifying in 2024. And yes, it's 17-1 at the time of writing. So that would suggest very much, yes, how good is Zhou? We don't really know. But what Bottas says and what Bottas does is almost irrelevant at this point, because I think the bosses that may well decide, wrongly I think, that he could be too old, he's uninspiring, and only in it for the money these days, maybe like a Kimi Räikkönen at Alfa Romeo. Some people suggest, I think Kimi was very good at Alfa Romeo in parts. But recent reports have indicated, and these are recent reports, that Bottas is potentially going to sign a new one-year contract with Sauber for 2025. Now, if this is true, it would represent a compromise on his previous public demands of what he wanted, which was a multi-year deal. And you can guarantee that Audi will be on the look for something maybe different in 2026. Maybe Valtteri Bottas will sign for 25, but he's only there, kind of like papering over the cracks. And Audi are going to want a younger, better, in their eyes, driver. Maybe like a Liam Lawson, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. So the next guy, I sadly don't have any pictures, but they're suggesting, and this is actually quite a shock, it's Jack Doan. Now, as you know, he's been promoted to a permanent seat by Alpine for next year. But it didn't really receive a massive ringing endorsement from people, which I thought was really unfair on the guy. Now, we got Flavio Briatore. He declared that the identity of Pierre Gasly's teammate makes no difference. And yes, Flavio's view, it doesn't really matter who drives the car when the car itself is not up to much. I disagree with that, but it's Flavio Briatore, the man that did help Benetton to win titles, helped Renault to win titles, but yes, he did. But you have to see the men behind Flavio Briatore are the ones that really were the movers and shakers. The argument being, Flavio Briatore was the man that hired them. So in that sense, he's very, very clever. But only when it's capable of scoring points, and we're talking about the Alpine team, podiums and victories, is a leading driver necessary in some people's eyes. So let's assume that Alpine may well sink all the way to rock bottom. Team Enstone are going to re-emerge next season as we have an Oliver Oakes who wants to bring a little respectability back. And that kind of reminds you of where Williams were a couple of years ago when, 1.5 years ago, 18 months ago, at least when James Vowles took over Williams. It kind of reminds you about that. And with the Mercedes customer engine expected to be on the way, Alpine, owned by Renault, a works team, but not a works engine. Work that one out. Absolutely ridiculous. In my opinion, a joke. You're not really serious about F1. But if there's any hint that Doan is not capable of matching Gasly and bringing those points, very likely a lot of people have been suggesting that he will be seen out the door. So far then, we've got Sergio Perez, Yuki Tsunoda, Valtteri Bottas, and Jack Doan, which sadly I don't have a picture for. But I've got a picture for the next guy. And you probably have got very many pictures for this next guy. And as I said, this is inspired by the PlanetF1.com article. It's this man here, Fernando Alonso. I mean, what? So at long last, Fernando has finally, he must be like, yes, he's got Adrian Newey by his side. But this is the big question. Is Fernando going to be sticking around long enough to see Adrian Newey's championship winning car, to see the fruits of Newey's labour? That's going to be the potentially awkward question. And Alonso made it abundantly clear during Red Bull's first dominant period that his true opposition was Newey and not a certain Sebastian Vettel. And now he finally has access to Adrian Newey, but it is the evening, let's say at the very least, I don't want to say twilight, but the evening of Fernando Alonso's career. He's defied the sands of time, yet teams across the sport, they tend to get itchy triggers when it comes to a certain age, which is really unfair, because if you can do the job, you can do the job. Age is just a number at that point. But Fernando, set to be 45 years old when F1 turns into 2026. That's an unprecedented age for, that's an old age considered by many for a modern driver. And he's already had a brush with his phenomenon once before at Alpine, who planned to shuffle him off to retirement in place of Oscar Piastri, but that didn't end well for a lot of people, did it? But what will happen, for example, if Max Verstappen does become available in the next 12 months? Bet your bottom dollar, what will Lawrence Stroll do? Is he going to bulldoze his way to the front of the queue and then get rid of Fernando Alonso, but keep Lance Stroll? History, when you look at dictates that may well be true, as absolutely ridiculous as that is. But this is Lawrence Stroll's team. Lance Stroll is his son. If you peel the Aston Martin logo off the car, you will probably see team nepotism. But there's a parallel to be drawn here with Ross Brawn, who, despite all they had achieved together, had no trouble elbowing Michael into retirement in 2012 when Lewis Hamilton wanted to leave McLaren. Remember that? Nothing personal, Michael. It's just business. That may well have been the phrase. Yet Michael Schumacher was still doing well. Maybe not as well as the Ferrari is, but still. But in other words, if Stroll is determined to reunite Red Bull's holy trinity of Honda, Newey, Verstappen for 2026, it's not going to be Lance that moves out of the way, is it? And that's really, really sad. And a massive exclamation mark. That is sad. So, what do you guys think? Has Planet F1, have we gone crazy thinking about who, the next 5 people that could leave Formula One? Let us know down below. That'd be appreciated. If you're new to the channel, or you've watched our videos but you're not subscribed, please do so. And if you don't want to miss a video, hit that notification button, please. Stay safe, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much.